I watch the window build with condensation as the rain pours harder outside. I can feel him watching like he always does, like he always will whenever the rain comes. But I've given up trying to hide. It's always useless. He's always been there, from my first memory of a downpour. When I first saw him, it was at our old place, the little cottage down on Pertwee Lane. I'd been 3 at the time. It was late afternoon, and I'd been watching the rain as I am now, staring out at it, fascinated by the way it dropped and exploded in a watery-type bomb as it hit the pavement. Rushing to my father's study while he was working, I had asked if it would be okay to go out in the rain and play. The answer was a yes, as long as I put on my gumboots and wore my rain jacket. I did as I was told, and soon enough I was playing in the front yard, just beyond the white picket fence that marked the edge of our property. Splashing through the puddles, looking up and poking out my tongue to taste the rain, spinning in circles until I fell down, too dazed to find my direction. I was having the time of my life, but of course, everything has beginning, has an end. Getting back up off the pavement, the water now seeping through my raincoat onto the orange t-shirt I wore, I feel a wave of happiness like nothing I've ever felt. I could feel the water on my back. I didn't mind though. I'd spotted another puddle a little ways down the road, just on the street corner that linked the 2 main streets of the town together. I remember saying something along the lines of, "Yippee," and ran off towards it. I got close to it and saw that it was bigger than the one located outside my house, and decided that this was the one I was going to be playing in from now on. I'd gotten a run up and was about to jump in the puddle, sending up a thick splash of muddy water in every direction, when there was a sudden flash of lightning somewhere overhead. I looked up into the sky to try and find the source of where it had originated. I eventually gave up, and my eyes trailed down to the road once more. And that was when I saw him, standing maybe 100 meters down the road, drenched in shadow. At first, I thought he was nothing but another pedestrian, walking through the rain to get wherever he had to go. But I was mistaken, and as he strode closer towards me, I could see that his head, although I couldn't see his face at the time, was fixed on me. I stopped splashing around and stood in the muddy water, looking at the man. He was still a good distance down the road, enough so that if he were to make any sudden movements, like break into a run, I could easily run back up to the pavement and get in my house before he even crossed through the street corner. But something kept me staring. The figure walked closer still. It seemed as though he was walking slowly on purpose, taunting me, wanting my 3-year-old body to be frozen to the spot. I could feel it. Breaking free of the shadows, the figure came into view. It was hard to tell exactly what he looked like from this far away, but I could at least see some facial features. The left side of his face was mangled. Burnt flesh stuck to the side of his head like hard strings of spaghetti, and bits of brain matter and skull were visible in the dim but sure enough light. It reflected off the bone as he drew closer, and as I watched his face, or what remained of it, it morphed into a kind of sickening grin. The clothes he wore resembled that of a kind of dress coat that a biker would stick to, although they were mostly blackened and stuck to the flesh. Leather, cotton, boots, it was all there. It was then, and only then, that I had regained my composure, turned from the puddle, and bolted back up the length of the pavement, tripping over and badly grazing my right knee as I fell short just of the picket fence. I took a glance behind me, and he was still there, charging towards me like some kind of nightmare vision. I got back up, ran past the end of the fence and through the gate, slamming it shut behind me. I then ran up to the house, opened the door, and did the same. I fell, breathing hard and leaning back against the oak door. Beads of blood had started to form where I had grazed my knee, but I ignored it, leaning over to look out the front window beside the door. The figure was gone. I told my parents about it, but they just passed it off as some form of my subconscious. They said I had too much of an active imagination. The Rain Man has been following me ever since. It has come every time there's been a storm since that day. I mostly don't go outside as long as I can help it, but every time there's a rain, lightning strikes, and he will be there, standing in the shadows, looking at my bedroom window, and I'll look back down at him, wishing him away. He never does. So here I am, staring out the window, waiting for the Rain Man to come again, waiting for the thunder, the split second of light, and then him. I watch and see the lightning, and then I look down. Standing below my window in the garden, looking back up at me as he always does. He's there. I can't see his face. He's shrouded in shadow, but I know he's grinning up at me, waiting for the chance when he can get to me. 10 long years he's been chasing me. 10 long years wherever I go, whatever I do. I hear a knock at my bedroom door and turn. My father walks in and sees me at the window.
John, you've got to stop this. There's no such thing as the Rain Man. You know that. The doctor has said as much. He's out there now, Dad.
I look down at the monster who's stalked me my entire life, and he starts to laugh. Dad walks over to the window and looks out. As usual, he sees nothing.
Come on, let's go downstairs.
He grabs me by the hand and leads me away from the window. Another lightning strike goes off, and I know the Rain Man has disappeared. I let out a sigh of relief. He's gone for now. Outside, the storm starts to weaken, and the rain stops altogether. A figure, looking as though he's fading from existence, stands in the garden, looking up at the child's window. The grin never leaves his face. You know, it's funny. Lying in the grass looking up at the night sky like this, I almost feel like I'm home again. It's a reminder of simpler times. A reminder of what once was, what could be again. I hear the others over there by the campfire, laughing, talking, telling each other tales of their time before the apocalypse. Before every day was a fight or die situation. As far as I can tell by the mental calendar, it's about day 107. Not exactly sure, but around about that time. 3 or 4 months sounds about right when you're talking in terms of normal timescale. These days, I'm mostly used to getting 3 hours of sleep and being woken up by Johnson for my turn on watch. I reach out and touch the rifle that's laying a few feet away from me, and then turn my head to look at it. My dad's rifle. Although these days, it's more of a family heirloom than a weapon. I've only ever fired 1 bullet, the only bullet I will ever fire. That was 107 days ago. The area where I grew up was mostly made up of forests with man-made paths cutting through the trees here and there, leading the way back to the main streets. It was a small town, the kind of place where everybody knew each other, neighbors meeting for coffee, Sunday barbecues, that sort of thing. I used to go for walks in and around the forests, sticking mostly to the trees. Some of these walks I did by myself, and some of them I did with my dad. It was kind of a tradition we had whenever we both had had enough of society in general. We would just go out in the forests, getting some time to ourselves for a change. What was even better about it was that the walks usually happened when the Earth's rotation caused the sun to be cut off in the sky, seeming as though it was split in two. The time we humans call dusk. We used to talk. Conversations about the future, the past, the family issues at the time. He used to tell me information I'd otherwise not know. It would range from the simple things of knowing what to do around the house to the vast majority of the world's history. A great many years we both spent walking through that forest. Those memories, they are the ones that hurt the most. Those memories are the ones which made what I had to do even harder. It was a relatively short time period after the outbreak had spread worldwide. I'd say around about a month or two after the initial collapse of civilized society had begun. The sun had gone down, and I was sitting at the table with my brother and sister. My mother was sitting in the armchair by the TV, in the latest clothing item in a series of winter garments. She figured if we were going to make it through the winter without any heating, our normal jackets and winter clothing wouldn't really be enough to protect us. The news anchor on the screen had just told the audience to be wary of their surroundings, to go out only when needed to, and that the scientists were working on a cure. All of us were on edge. The news didn't really tell you anything about exactly what this thing did to people, how they went from normal human beings into these rage-filled zombie-like creatures. But by then, we had already witnessed the transformation firsthand. Mr. Lewis, 4 houses down, had been working in his garden. He'd been mowing the lawn when the symptoms had first shown. To this day, I'm not sure why he felt that he needed to keep the garden in check when the rest of the world was going mad, but nevertheless, sticking to his week-to-week schedule, he was out there cutting the grass. It started with a constant coughing, continuing until the man was doubled over. After that, it was the headache which blurred his vision. He tried to get up, stumbling over the lawnmower and falling onto his face. This was when the rest of us had been alerted to what was happening. The screaming started. His wife had rushed out to see him leaning against the brick wall that bordered the property, holding his head in his hands, and soon enough the entire street was outside, my family and I among them. What came next was not something any of us had expected. His wife had gone over to see what was wrong. She was leaning down, trying to comfort the man, asking if he was okay. When she had reached out to touch him, that was when everything became a blur. Mr. Lewis had whipped his arm out and grabbed his wife by the throat in an instant. She had barely had time to come to terms with what had just happened, and as her hands started to rise to grasp her husband's wrists, her head was torn from her body like tissue paper. Blood exploded from Miss Lewis like a fountain, covering everything from the garden to the side of the house. The man dropped what remained of his wife onto the paved walkway which led up to their front door and turned to face the street. He was met with a crowd of shocked faces. Everything about him had changed. You see, Mr. Lewis was well known for not being the best man when it came to the job of breaking up fights, or any kind of conflict for that matter. He wasn't a man that went to the gym, he didn't work out casually, and he barely did any cardiovascular exercises. The only muscle the man had on him was the power of his brain. He could think his way out of most situations. The man standing before the crowd was not the man he was mere seconds before. He had taken on the form of somebody who had clearly been taking steroids, and too many. His whole figure looked abnormally large. His chest, biceps, triceps, shoulders all looked blown up and disproportioned. The clothes he wore had been ripped and parts of the skin and muscle were exposed. Veins stuck out everywhere like noodles that had been inserted just under the first layer of the skin. His facial features had turned from that of a living man to a cold, dead face, and his head now looked too small for the body. He opened his mouth, and an animalistic roar like thunder echoed from his lungs. It was then that everybody in the street panicked. People went their separate ways, some running back to their houses while others simply ran in a direction that would get them away. I turned, and that's when I saw my dad. As far as my memory serves me, he was never a man to be violent. He barely hit us as children. In fact, the only heated argument I had ever seen him in was when we were at the gas station one time, and a man had taken his parking space. However, in that moment it seemed that he had let go of his policy to never be anything but peaceful. He was standing there, unmoving, not panicking, with a rifle in his hands. I watched him raise the weapon, aim, and fire it. The gunshot rang out across the street and the silence fell just as fast as the panic had risen. Everyone turned from my dad and back to Mr. Lewis. And as the body fell, the only sound that could be heard was the hard thud on the pavement.
My dad didn't say a word, but simply turned and walked back inside our house, leaving the creature the man had become lying there, blood seeping out of the bullet wound in the center of his forehead. After that day, people in the neighborhood started turning one by one, and my dad was never the same. I wanted to ask him what the whole thing was about with the shooting, but I never got the confidence to do it. As for the outbreak, our friends, people we used to have dinner with, the kids in the street, they all fell victim to whatever this thing was. I had a friend, Jake, a couple of years younger than me. We went to the same high school. He was a cool kid. He had luck as if he were invincible, like nothing could ever hurt him. But one day, while I was up in my room, I saw him. He wandered down the street and stopped in front of our house. He was one of them. He looked up at me, the pale white face that was no longer like I remember. The kid was gone, and what remained was monstrous, rotted, twisting its facial muscles into an expression that can only be described as longing hunger. I gave him a weak smile before the man across the street came out of his house, walked up behind Jake, and emptied a shotgun shell into his head at almost point-blank range. 2 weeks after the incident with Mr. Lewis, a patrol was set up in the street. Those who weren't infected were given rifles, pistols, machetes, anything that can be used as a weapon against these creatures, whatever they were. But it wasn't completely changing how we lived that was the hardest part. It was not knowing when or where you would turn. There were some theories going around that it was caused by insect bites. Others said it was in the air we were breathing. In the end, the hard truth of the matter was that none of us knew what caused the change, and we would simply pray that we wouldn't be next. The news had frequently been showing these creatures attacking over the weeks. It looked like the rest of the world was having no better luck. Reporters carrying sidearms while covering stories, the windows on city buildings rigged up with cage wire, cars in the street on fire. The only good thing that seemed to come out of it all was that these things went down with one hit to the head. The world was going to shit, and all we could do was watch it unfold through a 12-inch one-sided field of view. Ironic, really. We think the people we look up to know the answers, but in the end, we realize they're exactly like us, making do with what they have. Things continued this way until that night came. As I said at the beginning, I was sitting at the table with my siblings. My mother was in the armchair. My dad, he was at the front window, looking out into the street, seeing if anybody else had turned. By that time, the inhabitants in the street had dwindled down to about 16 or 17 of us. Our family, the Wilsons across the street, Paul Thomas down the road, the old man that lived next to us, a couple of others maybe. The rest of them were gone. The street was filled with mostly abandoned houses. That week, the lights had been flickering and frequent blackouts were occurring. The disaster was finally beginning to cut off the human race from the essential thing that separated us from nature. Dad turned and put the rifle back into the corner near the front door, then crossed from the window back to the kitchen, where a sandwich lay toasting on the pan. "Everything okay, Dad?" He looked over at me as I asked the question, a serious look on his face. Picking up the cup of coffee beside the gas top on the bench, he raised it to his mouth and gave me the answer before drinking. "Nothing is wrong that I can see. Gary and Bob are on patrol. Other than that, everything seems like it should be okay." "You need me to help with anything?" "That's alright. Just look after the family for me." I nodded at him, and he smiled back at me. He tried to hide the sadness in it, but I could see right through it. I'd learnt the difference between a genuine smile and a half-hearted one long before that time. Turning my attention back to the TV screen, I saw that the news had changed from the anchor to a location somewhere in a city. It showed footage of a bunch of SWAT and police officers spreading yellow police tape from one side of the street to the other, cutting off entrance into that part of the block. No one in the room said anything. This had been the 5th time we had seen that sort of thing happening, and each time we'd lost a bit of hope that everything was eventually going to be okay.
Dad, how much time until we can go outside again?
It was my little sister Maggie who spoke. I looked over at her and smiled. She did the same. The gap in her teeth where her first tooth had recently come loose shone out like a black sheep. I laughed and looked back at the television screen. That was when the first cough had escaped his lungs. We all immediately looked his way. Over the weeks, we'd gotten used to listening out for the sound of any coughing whatsoever. He glanced up at us, his hand in the middle of his chest. "I'm okay, don't worry. Food went down the wrong way." My mother, brother, and sister all sighed in relief and turned their heads, but I kept my eyes on Dad. He looked up at me, his eyes suddenly beginning to tear up. He held his hand over his chest and his facial expression. The facial expression. It was one of those times where words cannot convey the message. An expression where you know exactly what it means. I knew what I had to do, even before I opened his lips to mouth the words. "Get the rifle." I got up out of the chair slowly and silently, trying not to alert my brother and sister to the fact that I was making for the front door. It was then, facing away from the rest of them, that I felt the tears start to blur my vision. Lifting my left hand, I wiped them away and continued walking. Another cough escaped from Dad behind me. This time I let the tear flow freely. Getting to the front door and seeing the rifle in its usual place in the corner, I bent down and picked it up. A grunt of pain. My mother asked him what was wrong, and he passed off as acid reflux. By the tone in her voice, it was obvious that she didn't believe him in the slightest. I turned to face the lounge room again, rifle in hand. Mom was already on her feet and across the room to where my dad sat, leaning against the basin and taps. "James, what's wrong?" There was no answer from him, only the reaction to the pain he felt through his lungs. He brought his hand up and clutched his chest again. My mother suddenly noticed I was gone, scanned the room and saw me at the front door. That's when she knew. "No, Max, you can't! Not your father!" She turned back to him. By now, my brother and sister were well aware of the situation. Their heads had been pulled from the screen, and the worried eyes of both of them were now darting between my mom, my dad, and me. "I have to, Mum. He's going to turn." My voice trailed off as tears filled my eyes. I wiped them away with a hand, steadying the rifle as best I could. "He's turning into one of them." I could no longer hold my tears in after that, and the crying began. My sister started, then my brother, and then finally my mother. All of us, weeping for what we had seen happen to so many people, weeping for the situation we were in, weeping because we all knew what had to be done. "Son!" Everybody stopped to look at Dad, the pain he was going through clearly showing on his face. "Listen to me." The voice was hard to hear through clenched teeth. He was clearly fighting off the urge to scream. Pushing himself up from the leaning position, he stood up and spoke again. "You have to do it." Straight away, my mother blurted out her words in protest. "No, James, there has to be a different way." My father cut off my mother with a sharp tone, turning his face to her. "There's no way to stop it. You know that. What the hell are you gonna do? Hope I don't turn, wait for me to kill you all?" He doubled over as a shot of pain came over his body. Mom tried to help him, but it was clear that she was doing no good. After a couple of seconds, he straightened himself up again and looked in my direction. The tears that were falling down his cheeks were clearly visible, and upon seeing them, my mother cried harder. "Max." My eyes darted from my mother to my father. "Don't let me turn. Don't let me become one of those things you hear me. You shoot me. You shoot me and you don't miss. Please, son. Please, for the family." He turned back to my mother. "Sweetie." She hugged him. "I love you. Take care of the kids for me." "Always," was my mother's reply. Next up were my brother and sister. He hugged them and told them that everything is going to be all right. Finally, he glanced at me. "Max, You've always been a good kid. Don't let this world change you. He clearly wanted to say more, but the pain took him once again. He screamed loudly, and when he did, I began to see the skin on his arms start to change. The muscles start to rise and expand. He looked up at me again, his eyes turning a dark color. Do it, son! Show me! Show me! Do it! His voice took on a more bass-filled dark tone, and I could see him struggling to hold on to his sanity. I raised the gun up slowly and looked through the scope, lining the crosshair with the center of my father's forehead. It's okay, Max. My mother's voice. A sad, sobbing mess, but nevertheless, the words were the ones that convinced me that I had to do it. It's okay, Max. Don't worry, it's okay. She'd continued saying this as the seconds went by, and I finally knew that I had no other choice. Wiping away a tear that streamed down my face, I looked down the rifle's sights once again, picked my target, and pulled the trigger. After that night, the system that had been set up in the street collapsed. More and more of the neighbors became those things, and more of the families of those people were forced to do what had to be done. Supplies started to run low, and the power may as well be out permanently with the frequent blackouts. We need to get away from here. We need to find somewhere with a better setup, I had said one night at a town meeting I'd organized. After I'd shot my father, I'd become something of a leader, maturing up to the adult inside faster than my mother thought possible. There were 10 of us at that town meeting, the 10 that were remaining, and we all argued about the idea that had been brought up. Debate had sprung quickly on what exactly we would do after we ran out of supplies while on the road, each person having to say their individual thoughts before anyone made a decision. In the end, it was said that we would take our chances out in the world, better than staying in that town and waiting for the end to come of starvation, thirst, or anything else that could get us close to killing us as slowly as it could. So we gathered our things and took off, walking away from the town in which people had made their lives, moving away from the places that we called our homes, and onto a path of hopeful salvation, making our way towards something that could hopefully save us. All that was 107 days ago. And as far as we walk, we still haven't found what we've been looking for. All that time and not a trace of what once was. There are still the falling cities and the groups of human resistance out there, trying whatever they can to survive, but at the same time, there's nothing. No hope. In the 107 days of the apocalypse, I've killed 59 of those creatures. Some of them the people we took off with, others we met along the way. But as I lay here now, looking at the rifle and thinking of home, I know only one thing. That right now, I'm okay. I'm fine. It's peaceful for this one moment on this planet. A destroyed Earth. A piece of rock claimed by a virus. I'm safe. And for as long as this will last, I don't know. I sit up, facing the trees that are directly ahead of me, and pick up my rifle. Slowly getting up from the ground, I turn and walk over to where the group is huddled around the campfire. I see my mom, sitting opposite to the side I'm standing on, and when she looks up at me, I see something that I haven't seen since before the night I shot my dad. She's smiling. Her eyes meet mine, and I smile back at her. The gaze between us lingers for a couple of seconds, until my brother next to her offers her a mug of something and she turns from me and takes it. I store the moment in my memory, and linger at the fire for a few seconds longer, until I turn and head towards the border of our camp. Before going up to Johnson, I make sure that the revolver I use for a main weapon is holstered to my side, and upon confirming that it is, I open my mouth. Hey Johnson, go and join the others. I'll take watch. I finish my approach, and the man looks at me. You sure? Your shift doesn't start for another 45 minutes. Yeah, we'll be okay. Go ahead. They have mugs of something over there. Might be coffee. Johnson looks over in the direction of the campfire, his facial features now visible in the light of the flames. Coffee? You serious? Where the hell did we get coffee? I don't know, but you better hurry up if you want any. Looks like it's going quick. Johnson thanks me and puts a hand on my shoulder as he walks out and from the shade of the tree. I watch him walk over and sit down, then turn to face the blackness of the forest, hooking the rifle over my shoulder and resting a hand on the butt of the revolver. I breathe in and breathe out slowly as I inhale the fresh air, savoring every moment of this night. Who knows when the next peaceful 10 minutes may come along. I breathe in, out, out. Then I feel a slight dull pain in my chest and clear my throat. The pain still lingers. The first cough comes seconds later.
You are now connected with a stranger. Say hi.
Okay. Hey.
Hi.
What's up?
What's up?
Nothing much really, just kinda sitting here doing nothing.
Nothing much really. Just kind of sitting here doing nothing.
Right. So you could just kinda copy everything I say, or...
Right, so are you just gonna copy everything I say, or...
Okay, well, I'm gonna go now.
Okay, well, I'm gonna go now.
Bye.
Bye. You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, click here. You are now connected with a stranger. Say hi.
Sup?
Sup?
Nothing much, you?
Nothing much. You.
Is this thing working right?
Is this thing working all right?
Okay, I'm gonna take that as a no. Alright, exit Google Chrome. Desktop. Double click on Google Chrome again. Go to the address bar. www.omegle.com. Enter. Keep it clean and friendly. Yeah, right. This is freaking Omegle. Start a chat. I'm gonna go tweet.text. Brew.
You are now connected with a stranger. Say hi.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
And it's still doing it. Maybe it's the website. Try this one last one. If it still does it, I'll shut down the browser.
You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, click here. You are now connected with a stranger. Say hi.
Hello?
I know.
And voila, here we are, back in the world of Omegle. The place where people know things. How are you?
I know.
Sorry?
I know.
You know...
I know.
Right, well, that's good for you.
You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, click here. You are now connected with a stranger. Say hi.
Hey.
I know who you are.
What the fuck is going on? Is this some sort of joke?
I know who you are.
Very funny.
You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, click here. I know who you are and where you are.
What the fuck? Who the hell is this?
I know who you are and where you are.
How are you doing this? I didn't even start another conversation.
I know who you are and where you are.
You're hacking my computer.
I know who you are and where you are. You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, click here. I know the names of your family members.
How the fuck are you doing this?
I know where you sleep at night. You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, they are going to look so good. And so will you, Dean.
How did you know my name?
You know those pencils you keep in that holder next to your monitor, Dean. I'm going to see how many can poke out of your stomach.
What the fuck?
I'm going to get your parents, then Jenna, and then you.
Who the fuck is this?
Hey Dean, have you ever seen a dead body before? I don't think you have, Dean. I'll give you the choice before you're gone. It's a lovely looking thing, Dean. You might like it.
I'm gonna call the police.
How can you call the police when the phone lines don't work, Dean?
What the fuck? My phone's not... Alright, who are you, and how are you doing this? What the hell?
Hear that, Dean? That sound on your roof?
Footsteps on the... What the hell?
Listen for the next one, Dean.
That was the bloody front door. Shit.
Your front door is too easy to open, Dean. You should invest in some new locks.
How are you doing this? What the hell is that?
Nothing. Nothing. Just the sound of your father's muffled scream.
I have a gun!
You mean the gun in your father's drawers? I don't think you'll be needing that now.
Holy shit. What do you want?
I just want to see your family at rest.
You bastard. I'm gonna kill you!
There is no need for that, Dean. Oh, here is your mother. She's got the knife in her hands. Such a pity she doesn't know where I am.
You fucking touch her!
And what, Dean? You're going to break down your door? Come at me with that gun?
Mom! Mom!
Screaming at her doesn't help,
Mom!
Dean. She can't hear you.
Mom!
And down she goes. I didn't know blood could look so red.
Fuck you!
Jenna is right here. I'd let her talk to you, but she no longer can. Don't scream at me, Dean. That's never the way to go. Okay, I'm coming for you now.
Jesus Christ.
I'm outside your door, Dean. Can you hear the rattle? I'm opening the door, Dean. I'm opening the door. Oh, you locked it? That was a good idea, but locks don't work on me.
Oh my god, fucking... Oh my god.
Last offer. Are you sure you don't want to see a dead body? You're going to jump out the window. But I already have you by the leg, Dean. Bye-bye, Dean. Nice chatting to you. You have ended the conversation. To connect with another stranger, click here.
Space is the final frontier. Well, that's what my mother taught me. You can look at it and see billions upon billions of stars and galaxies, all waiting to be explored, waiting to be found, each with their own individual properties and molecules, each with their own life, history, and ancient secrets, all of them out there, but simply too far away. When I was 10, however, I didn't know this to be true. I dreamed that one day I would get in my own personal space shuttle and fly out there among the stars. Just me in a vast nothingness. I'd have time to think about whatever I wanted to think about, read every book man had written, and somewhere in there I'd even write my own stories. Write about the wonders I would have been destined to see, to experience for myself. Write about other races, other cultures, interspecies communication, the first alien found. But dreams are not reality. Dreams are dreams. What real life is what we are presented with and have to handle. And right now, well, it will be over soon enough. They say we have 45 days until the asteroid collides with us. 45 days. Not very long when you think about it. You can't really do anything in 45 days. Well, that's a lie. You can do a lot in 45 days. For example, you could spend every cent you have traveling a world, seeing everything you have ever wanted to see, meeting all kinds of different people, experiencing all humanity's cultures and food and traditions. In 45 days you could write a novel, write a symphony, learn a musical instrument, get a tattoo. Anyway, the list goes on. You can do a lot in 45 days. You cannot, however, make a lasting impact on the human race. And that, unfortunately, is all I've ever wanted to do. I'll never get the chance to do that now. Most people look at me and, thinking they know me, assume that for me, changing the world would be something like coming up with a cure for cancer. I am a scientist after all, and I do work with diseases and such. But that's not something that is important to me. Yes, I hate disease, but finding a cure wouldn't change the human race in a way that I want it to change. Sitting in this apartment, on this chair, looking straight out the window into the city I live in, with all its buildings, all its streets, all its people, I feel empty. Empty like the space above us. Kind of like the top of the dome. All the glass meets at the top and then stops, and above all that, open space. Stars and galaxies, and the asteroid in the distance. Every morning I wake up and I see it, all the way out there. To the eye it doesn't look like it's gotten closer, but it has, and continues to every second. In a weird way, I have respect for that asteroid. It's accomplishing something. It might not have started out as it has, but with it coming to destroy us, the universe has given it a goal, and it's going to make sure it carries out that goal. The goal has become its life. Sometimes I wish all the people thought like that. It disappoints me to see that even when we know we have limited time on something, people still don't seem to grasp that panicking and thinking about it is not going to change the fact that the event is going to occur, no matter what happens. Kind of hypocritical, really. I'm doing the exact same thing. I know I should be out there accomplishing my dreams and aspirations. I should try and beat the clock, try to change the face of Mars in the 45 days we have left. But what's the point? I know I'm going to fail. I suppose that's my challenge, however. Try to make a difference and die, or simply die. It's closer than ever before now, almost as if it's right on top of us. It seems like it's just teasing us, tormenting us with its presence. Like a schoolyard bully pushing over who he thinks to be the weaker man just to feel the power of greatness, to laugh at him while he holds up his victim's most prized possession. Nobody goes outside anymore. Nobody wants to go outside. And who would want to, really? 6 days of life left. People don't want to be reminded of that by looking up. They would rather stay in their homes and pretend everything is alright. Pretend like we are fine. Pretend we are going to live. I find it strange, really. When people know the end is coming, they still tend to do nothing with their lives. They live like they're gonna live forever. Like the end isn't coming. Well, not me. More than half a decade ago, when they told us about the asteroid, I started my life. It's taken me this long to figure it out. So long to make it what it is, but I am at the end. And I am sure to be wiped out by the bully that looms above us. He will take my soul and my will to live, but he won't take everything. I made a machine. A machine that will send out a pulse wave when the thermonuclear furnace of impact rearranges the molecular structure and combines it with the superheated elements of the asteroid, just as with Earth at the beginning. It's going to trigger a reaction, something that will eventually grow into something for other races and species. Where there is one, there is more. I've already said it, and at any second now, the asteroid will collide with us. I have left my mark. I am... Mars reeled from the collision as the asteroid struck. Everybody and everything was destroyed. A single shockwave, making its way around the planet like a superheated scythe, and from the wasteland left in its wake, a single spark began to make its own impact at a quantum level. Part 1. The Messenger. Mr. Charlie Black was not good at making decisions. It wasn't the fact that he couldn't make them, but rather that if he felt he made the wrong one, things would go terribly for him. Despite this fact, however, he had acquired the ownership of a popular bookstore named Page's. It was located on a busy street corner in the city he lived, and he was able to make a good living out of the place. He was reasonably nice to the customers, making good chit-chat when they would come up to the counter to either pay for something, or to simply ask information on a book. He would do what he could for them, and the customers would be on their way. Charlie was happy living a life like that. He could make his own work hours, read as much as he liked in his free time, check out the newest works from the newest authors. But the thing he treasured most about owning the place was that he didn't have to make many decisions. His world was simple. He didn't have a wife, no children. His parents had passed away and he was an only child. He didn't have to be forced into anything he didn't want to, and he mostly kept to himself. He lived that life for 62 years, from the day he was born up until a week before his 63rd birthday on November 7th, 2013. That day, a week before his birthday, that was the day that he made the most important decision of his life. It was during a lunchtime break. He had turned the sign around on the door to closed and was now sitting back in the chair behind the counter, reading a furniture magazine. He was about halfway through it, thinking about his table situation at home and trying to avoid another decision, when he heard the familiar sound of the bell on the door ring out across the room, as if somebody was coming into the shop. "We are closed. We'll be back in half an hour." The old man said this without looking up from the page and turned to the next one. When he didn't hear the door opening again, he lowered the magazine slightly and glanced in the direction of the door. "Hello? We are closed. The store isn't open again for another half hour. I'm just on my lunch break." Charlie couldn't see whoever it was that had come in from the angle he was sitting on, since the door was blocked by a bookcase, but he knew somebody was there and was clearly ignoring him. He sighed, brought his legs down off the desk, and got up out of the chair, grabbing his cane on the way past the desk. He stopped when he passed the bookcase, ready to block the way into the store and tell the person that he would be glad to serve them once he returned to business. He was baffled to see that nobody was standing there. Scratching his head, he tried to figure out why the sound had rung out. When he couldn't, he figured that somebody in the street had fallen against it. He walked up and looked out of the glass pane built into the door. He could see nothing. He was about to pass it off as something that he heard his imagination when he suddenly heard a chuckle. Walking as fast as he could back out into the main shop, Charlie looked around for the source of the noise. He could see nothing that was out of the ordinary. All the books on the shelves had not been disturbed, no books on tables had been opened. Everything seemed normal. I must be going mad. He had almost got to the end of the thought when the laughter sounded once more, and this time, he looked up towards the shelves. He was just in time to see a dark figure move at speed from one part of the store to the other. "Who's there?" It meant the words to come out as broad and confident, but instead they ended up sounding his age, a fearful wheeze of a question. He wasn't surprised either. He had had his fair share of confrontation when he was younger, but that was in the day when he could move. He could spring into action at the drop of a hat. These days he was a frail soul, his bones threatening to break at the slightest force. "I'm warning you, don't make me call the police."
As if I'm gonna call the police. Probably wouldn't even get over there before I got knocked out.
His thoughts were right, but he kept that part to himself for a reason. Alright, jeez, calm down, man. No need to call the cops." The voice of the intruder finally spoke, and as the man looked over to where he had heard the voice coming from, he heard the sound of a lighter opening and the flame being flicked on. "You get out of my store now, and don't come back, you hear me?" There wasn't an answer for a couple of seconds, and Charlie was ready to start moving over to the phone. He stopped dead in his tracks as the intruder emerged from his hiding place. "You want me to leave? You haven't even heard what I got to say. Give me a chance, man, come on." The thing standing before the old man took a minute to sink in. What had come into the store wasn't a man. It wasn't some robber waiting in the shadows to club him and take the money. It was a goblin. A small grey goblin. Ears protruded from the top of its head. The skin on its arms looked rough and scaly, and the eyes were a dark green color. What stood out the most, however, was that the creature was wearing normal clothes. A black dress shirt with sleeves rolled up. The shirt was accompanied by a loosely tied white tie. The bootleg jeans which covered his legs gave way to the black Converse All-Stars, and the creature, it was smoking. The old man could only stand there looking down at it, his mouth hanging open. "What are you looking at? Is there something on my face?" The creature took the cigarette out of its mouth as it spoke, and outstretched its free hand in a questionable nature. "No, nothing, it's just, you're wearing clothes." Charlie had other questions for the thing, but he couldn't think of anything else to say at that moment. "Yeah, I'm wearing clothes. Would you rather I was naked? 'Cause I can get undressed if you want to, although I don't think you'll like what's underneath the covers." A small laugh escaped the creature, and when he finished speaking he put the cigarette back in his mouth and turned, heading away from the old man and towards the counter. "Oh, by the way," it was almost as if it was an afterthought, "sorry about the chuckle. I kinda had this thing when I like to scare people before I talk to them. Yeah, I'm an asshole, I know. But hey, I was born to do it. What do you expect?" The man opened his mouth, and a few more words escaped into the open. "You're a goblin." "Yeah." "You're wearing clothes." "That's right." "And you have a Cockney accent." "All of us come from somewhere, buddy." The goblin turned away from Charlie again, but stopped in his tracks as another sentence escaped the old man's throat. "This is impossible, you're a mythical creature." The thing immediately turned with a look of anger on its face. "Hey, don't start with that racist shit. Listen, does this look mythical to you?" The cigarette returned to the mouth of the thing, and in its place, a finger was raised among the others. It was hard to tell because the thing had one less digit on each hand, but Charlie was certain that the goblin was flipping him off. The hand lingered in position for a few seconds, then the creature lowered it, turning and speaking again. "The name is Derek." "Derek the Goblin. Got it." Charlie said this as he started following the goblin. The shock that had first gripped him had worn off a little, but he was still wary of what this thing's motives really were. The two of them got to the desk, and Derek made his way around to the other end, climbing up into the chair and adjusting the height so that he was able to see over the desk. The old man was left standing there. "Well, take a seat, why don't you?" As the words came out of his mouth, the creature raised his left hand and clicked his fingers. A black desk chair appeared in a puff of smoke behind Charlie, and he was yet again shocked. But before he could have his say on this particular factor, the creature outstretched his hand, gesturing him to sit down. Charlie did as he was told, although letting himself get comfortable in the chair was another thing altogether. "Okay, let's see. First item on the agenda." As the creature finished saying this, he outstretched both his hands. Within an instant, a pen appeared in his right hand and a clipboard in his left, both producing smoke out of thin air. He lowered both his hands and put the clipboard in front of him on the desk, then scanned the page. Charlie was hesitant to ask the question, but he had to know. He needed the knowledge whether this thing in front of him was going to kill him, eat him, take his soul, or anything else that would end in him suffering for eternity. He opened his mouth and spoke the words before his mind could tell him to hesitate. "Do you work for the devil?" The reply from the creature was simple. No change in the tone of his voice, and no looking up from the paper. The only movement was the one which took the cigarette out and put it out on the desk. "The devil? Nah, that guy's a dick." The old man was shocked at the answer and grew fearful with every passing word. If this thing truly worked for some sort of demon, surely insulting the leader meant that something would be sent after this goblin. Insulting Satan wasn't exactly the best idea. Derek continued his words. "He wouldn't give me a flat screen TV in my room when I asked for it. Also, I'm not that wrapped in his whole obsession with fire." "You don't work for the devil?" "Nah, and I don't work for the man upstairs either, if that's what you're thinking. I'm kind of a mutual man when it comes to this sort of thing, and whoever offers me a better deal wins. At the moment, it's God. He offered me a good room. It's overlooking the pearly gates. 5-star accommodation." Charlie was confused by this, and when the goblin looked up at him, he laughed. "You humans. You have one view of God, that He's almighty and powerful and answers all your prayers the moment He gets them. Well, I'll tell you what, the guy is nothing like that. He's kind of lazy, actually. He has this outlook that because He created the Earth and every other planet out there, He shouldn't have to do anything. It kind of pisses me off, actually, but anyway, moving on." The creature looked down at the page again. "Okay, like I said before, first item on the agenda. Unfortunately, it's not that great. You have cancer." The mention of this took Charlie back some, and he had to ask, just to confirm. I have cancer?" The old man felt the shock go through him. It felt almost like he was on a surgery table and the doctor was hitting him with the defibrillator. "Yep, terminal. In about 6 months from now you'll be gone. Bang, just like that. Your new friends will be the ones that you're joining up there." The goblin moved the pen off the page and into the air, bobbing it in an upward position twice. "Although, I may not be there at that time. I tend to move around a lot, so if you do find yourself standing at the entrance, I wouldn't recommend you give them my name." Charlie repeated his previous words as the goblin got out of the chair, seeming to give his legs a stretch. He walked around the bookstore, picking up hardcovers off shelves and studying them. "I have cancer." Another couple of times this sentence was heard in the bookstore, and on the 5th time, Derek turned. If the old man were to see the look in his eyes for that brief second, he would have come to the conclusion that the goblin wasn't anything but a trickster, a creature designed to torment those that he met with. But he didn't look, and so the events rolled out the way Derek wanted them to. He put the book down and walked back to the desk. "Listen, man, I was sent here to tell you have cancer, and to warn you about it. I'll admit that God was a bit of an idiot about that, but that's the way he is." There was a short pause. "However, there might be something I can do for you." Charlie's eyes brightened with hope as he looked up at the goblin. Part 2. The Box. "What is it?" "Before I explain it to you, I'll have to go over what the thing is, and the price of using it. It's this box." "A box?" "Yes, a box. A small black box. It's sentient. The way it works is, it scans your soul,
gives you 2 random options on what it reads as your darkest secrets, the things that you do your best to hide from the outside world.
It scans me?
Yes, but there's something else you need to know. Once you choose to use it, there's no going back. You have to choose one of the options it gives you, even if the 2 options both result in an outcome you have no desire to make happen.
Charlie stopped and thought for a moment before replying.
So you're saying once I decide that I'm using the box, there's no going back? Yes, using the box cures you of all illness, but a price for it is making the decision. If you don't make that decision, well, let's just say when the box was brand new, it wasn't as heavy as it is nowadays.
A long silence followed what Derek said, maybe half a minute. The old man wasn't sure, trying to decide whether to die of cancer or have a random decision affect him for the rest of his life. It was the one thing he never wanted to do. Meanwhile, the goblin took another stroll, this time stopping at one of the far shelves to the left of the store, picking up a copy of The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger and beginning to read it. By the time Charlie looked around to tell him the answer to what he was going to do, he was already halfway through the book.
You know, this Holden Caulfield guy reminds me of this dude I used to know back in the 90s.
The goblin looked up from the book and saw that Charlie was staring at him, waiting to tell him what he had decided to be his fate. Shutting the book, he made his way back to the desk and again sat down behind it.
Well, what's it gonna be, Cancer Man? My box or their box?
When you said the box was heavier than before, you meant that the box absorbs the soul of a person who changes their mind once they have said they want to use it?
No shit, man, what do you think this is? Listen, I'll explain it to you in simple terms. It's like you're at a casino, playing blackjack. You're at 20, the dealer gives you an ace. Bingo! The dealer gives you the king, you lose. The box is like a game of blackjack. You could get the ace, or you could get the king. However, if you choose not to play the game once your chips are on the table, security comes to get you. But instead of kicking you out, they take you and put you in jail for eternity.
So if I go back on my decision, the box takes my soul and locks it inside itself?
Now you're getting it, Charlie boy!
The creature leaned over the table and smacked the old man on the shoulder as if they were friends.
So, what's the decision? I don't have all day, you know. I have to head over to Paul McCartney after this, see what he's doing.
Charlie looked up at the mention of the Beatles bassist.
Sorry, confidential.
The goblin shrugged and silence fell back over the shop. A few moments later, it was broken. Give me the box. I'd rather take my chances with the decisions than die in 6 months.
And he chooses the box. Come right up, sir.
Derek raised his hand, and in an instant there was a puff of smoke, and a black box appeared.
Set right up, boys and girls. Witness the power of the mysterious black box. What wonders could it hold? What secrets does it possess? Come and see for yourself.
The voice of the goblin had changed into a similar voice to that of somebody you would find at a carnival, tempting people from all over to come and see what was so great about his stall. Sorry, the voice was regular now.
I knew this dude who owned a circus once. They called him Elastic Jimmy. Could dislocate any bone in his body. Used to walk around like that chick out of The Exorcist. Nice guy. Disappeared without a trace, unfortunately. Quite sad. Anyway, back on track.
He placed the box on the counter. It made a heavy metal sound, seeming as though it was a lot bigger than it sounded.
Now place your hand on top of the box.
The old man was hesitant.
Come on, man, I've got it out and everything.
Slowly, he outstretched his hand and placed it on the top of the object. It felt cold, like a metal that's been outside for years. A sharp feeling accompanied the cold, a feeling that would spring up if he happened to run the palm of his hand along a knife edge.
Keep your hand there, keep your hand there.
Charlie felt a slight stabbing pain and pulled his hand back quickly, grabbing hold of it with his other appendage.
And that's the blood sample.
Blood sample?
Yeah, dude. How do you think it's going to be able to scan your soul? It needs some DNA first.
Why does technology invented by gods need to take a blood sample? The goblin laughed.
This wasn't invented by gods, my friend. This thing? This was forged in the fires of hell.
The look of the old man's face made the goblin burst out laughing.
Nah, man, I'm just kidding with you. You can actually buy one of these things on the corner between 666th and Lucifer Street. Good price. Just takes your blood sample so I can identify who you are in the human race is all. I got a great deal on this one. Bought about half a century ago. Only cost me half a dozen souls.
Why have you got a road named after the
black market?
Heaven has a black market?
Every city has a black market. In fact, that reminds me, I gotta check how that bidding war is going on Hell Bay.
Wait a second.
Where the items on the black market come from? Charlie's question was never answered. As he finished his sentence, a blue light exploded from the box, shooting straight down to light up his legs. It hovered there for a few seconds, then slowly began to move up his body, increasing and decreasing in diameter to match his figure. Once it got to his head, it went back down to his feet, and rose again shortly after. This repeated a few more times, and then the light decreased to the size of a laser pointer, and retracted back into the box. And that is it for the scanning procedure. Now we get to the exciting part. Derek smiled at the old man. He didn't smile back. Nothing happened for a couple of seconds. To Charlie it seemed like forever, and he was just about to ask the goblin if it was meant to take as long as it was, when slowly, a red light that looked similar to that of neon illuminated around the edges of the box. It grew and intensified until it was right on the brink of causing the old man to shield his eyes from the glare, as not to hurt them. The intensity of the light stayed at that level, as if waiting for something else to happen before it could move on to its next stage. Then, all at once, the light faded, and the top of the box popped open to reveal a smoke that looked like a kind that dry ice would produce when in boiling water, and moments later, a small screen rose from the depths of the box. It looked like one of those TVs that would serve as a viewer for security cameras, big enough to hang on the wall but small enough to rest on the desk. Without warning, it turned on. The screen was split into two sections. One had the title of Decision 1, while the other had the title of Decision 2. "Here I come, Charlie boy." As the goblin said his statement, two sentences faded into view, one in each column. Charlie's eyes grew wide as he read Decision 2 slowly, and the goblin laughed as the reaction took place. Part 3. The Decision. Die in surgery, giving somebody my liver, or change the outcome of the human race forever? What kind of decisions are they? Charlie got up out of the chair and started walking around the bookstore, waving his hands around in the air and going on about how he could never make the decision he was faced with. Although, by the frailty of the man, he couldn't do it for very long, and soon enough all he was doing was yelling. All the while the goblin sat there, watching him with a look of boredom on his face. When he had had enough of the old man talking to himself, the goblin spoke up, both out of annoyance and frustration. "If you don't make the decision soon, I'm gonna have to make it for you." At Derek's voice, Charlie stopped talking and turned around, facing the desk again. "You said it would be between two decisions. You didn't say I had to choose how the human race was going to turn out. What I said was, it will give you two random choices, and there is a choice you will win, or a chance you will lose. Just because you lost doesn't mean it's my fault." "You said you would help me." Charlie's words were cut off. "Listen, cockbite. You didn't want to die of cancer, so I gave you this option. You said yes to it. Now, there's no going back from this point on. So, here's what needs to be done. You need to decide what you want to do between those two decisions down there. If you don't, your soul is going to end up inside this box. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. My life keeps going. This is all you're doing, my friend. Now stop whining like a little bitch, sit down, and make your damn choice." The man sat down in the chair the goblin produced out of thin air and looked up at the screen and began thinking about what he was going to do next. This took longer than Derek had expected, so he spoke up, clearly seeing Charlie was having trouble with the decision. "Okay, buddy boy, time to help you out a bit. Which outcome of which decision do you want to see?" The old man looked up. "What? What do you want to see? I can show you the outcome of one decision. One decision only, though. Let's not get greedy and take the whole jar of cookies. Show me the outcome of the human race." Derek was surprised at the speed at which Charlie had made his decision. "That fast, huh? It's not hard when you know what's going to happen if you die in surgery." "Okay, if you say so, Charlie boy." The goblin raised his hand to touch the screen and closed his eyes. He looked as though he was channeling something. His face screwed up, and his eyes moved underneath the lids. Charlie waited, looking at the screen. A few moments later he saw what he thought looked like a feature film, but it was being played out much faster than he could take it in. All he really saw of the thing before it disappeared were people on the street, something being launched into space, and an explosion. The screen had flicked back to the decisions before he even had a chance to blink. What the hell was that? That was how the human race would end up if you chose that option. I could barely tell what was going on. Well, if I showed you the whole thing, we'd be here for years. I'd rather spend my time with somebody else if you don't mind. There was no response from Charlie, and once again the goblin grew impatient of the waiting. Okay, this is it. You gotta make a decision now because I am officially running late for my next meeting. And so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you 1 more minute to decide what you want to do. If you haven't decided in that minute, then I'm going to pick the one I like and you will just have to deal with the repercussions. Derek started counting down from 60 seconds. Wait, hang on, I need more time. He ignored the old man. Wait! Still no response. Before long, the counter was down to 30 seconds and Charlie was frantically trying to find a way out of the obstacle before him. The counter continued down. 19, 18, 17, 16... By the time the creature was down to 10, the man thought he had no choice but to yell the only thing that came out of his mouth. So that's exactly what he did. Outcome of the human race! I choose the outcome of the human race! The goblin stopped counting, and a grin spread across his face. The outcome of the human race, you say? Yes, the outcome of the human race. I want to change the way the human race will turn out. I don't want to die, and with this option it seems like I won't. I see. The goblin's voice took on a humorous tone. And is that your final decision, Charlie boy? The next words were hesitant, but they were the words that he meant. Yes, that is my final decision. Okay then! Derek waved his hand over the top of the screen, and all at once it retracted back into the box, pieces breaking up into smaller parts so they could fit. When everything was back in the small space that the box provided, the top slammed shut, and once again it became just a black box, sitting on the desk. The goblin picked it up in his hands, and just as quick as it had come to be in his hand, it disappeared, the same puff of smoke appearing from nothing. That's it, I'm afraid. Time for me to go. Places to be. Derek stood up from the chair and walked out from the desk. That's it? The old man turned in his chair as he said this, catching the goblin as he headed towards the door. No telling me what to expect or anything? What to look out for in case I want to see what I did? Derek stopped in his tracks and turned around to face the man. Silence hovered for a few seconds, then the creature burst out laughing. Charlie frowned. What's so funny? The goblin didn't answer the question, but instead dropped to his knees, then onto his back. Soon enough he was rolling around on his sides, holding his body from the aching. What's so funny? Tell me, damn it! Oh, you humans. You never learn anything, do you? The creature wiped away a tear and stood back up, leaning on a nearby bookshelf, getting his breath back. What's that meant to mean? You could have won, my friend. Oh, you could have taken on Broadway and the performance of your life, but instead, you chose the road that leads to nowhere. The car broke down and there's nobody for miles. Can you stop talking in riddles and just tell me what the hell is going on? It was a test! That's what the box is. It's a test of your humanity. What you are willing to do when faced with two complete opposites. Yes, you explained that at the start, but you didn't choose the right decision. What do you mean I didn't choose the right decision? It was my free will. One or the other. You said if I choose one of the decisions, I'll be cured. You said that was a sacrifice for the cure. Choosing between two random things. I did say that, but that's not everything. Charlie felt a sting of anger rise up in him as he realized the goblin had tricked him on some level. Then what's the rest of it? My soul gets taken away, the cancer is gonna come back, what? Tell me, you ugly little shit! Ouch. It's not a very nice thing to call somebody who's just help you out. You know, you ought to learn to be more appreciative of people. Derek took a pause to laugh. If you had chosen the right decision, nothing would have happened to you. Everything would have been okay. You would have been cured of cancer and the human race would have just gone on living like they always do. Although, you are cured of cancer, so that's one thing. What? Finally realizing what the goblin was saying to him, the old man clenched his hand in a fist. If you had chosen the surgery, you will live through it. The test of good character failed. It seems you would rather let the world destroy itself than help someone out. You're a selfish human being, Charlie boy. You asshole. I know. I told you I was an asshole before. Weren't you listening? At the end of the goblin's sentence, Charlie moved as fast as he could towards the creature. But by the time he got there, Derek was ready with his hand raised in the air. He clicked his fingers and disappeared, leaving a puff of smoke in his wake. There was silence for a couple of seconds, and Charlie looked around the room, trying to see if the goblin was still there, waiting for any sign. He spun back around as he heard the voice behind him. Oh, and by the way, if you do want to find out what outcome it is, I highly recommend tuning into the news in about 9-10 months. Should have popped up on television by then. Anyway, I'll see you later. Once again the goblin clicked his fingers and vanished into thin air. Charlie heard the sound behind him of the door opening and closing, but made no attempt to move towards it. He knew the goblin was gone, and there was no getting him back. The old man stood in silence for a long time, simply just looking at the wall behind the desk. Then slowly, he turned and walked towards the door, stopping in front of it. He reached up and grabbed the sign that was switched around to closed. At that moment, he did the only relevant thing that came to mind. He was at a loss for not only words, but for thought too, and he figured he may as well do what he did best. He turned the sign around on the door. Part 4. The Outcome. The tea sat steaming on the bench as Charlie made his way over to the fridge, opened it, and got out the milk. He then closed it, walked over to where the tea was, and poured the milk into the tea, stopping when he thought it was enough. He gave the tea a stir and put the milk back in the fridge. Soon enough, he was holding the mug in his hand and heading back to his lounge room, where the seat in front of the television was sitting idle. Removing the vacancy, he sat down. Reaching his hand out, he grabbed the remote that was sitting on the coffee table beside the chair, pointed at the TV, and pushed the power button. The screen came to life with the sound of a trailer for a movie. It ended, and some more advertisements played before the news came on. Charlie put his mug on the coffee table and leaned forward in his chair. The date was 20th of August, 2014. The goblin had said to tune into the news around this time to see the changes he had made, and that's exactly what he was doing. All things that had been distracting him before stopped as the opening title for the news played, and the camera cut to the anchor.
Good evening, and welcome to Channel 27 News. Our stories this week include a man caught in a tree after climbing it drunk, a number of individuals reporting seeing a figure that has come to be known as the Rain Man, and the breakthrough in science that may have just jumped our technology forward.
Charlie's eyes were fixed on the screen, so much so that he didn't even flinch when he heard the voice behind him. "Turning in, Charlie boy. Well done. I didn't think you would remember. The old lump of meat in your head is getting old, you know." The old man didn't respond. Okay. Sorry about that. That was low." There was still silence, and seeing that he was clearly being ignored, the goblin shut his mouth and watched the news report.
The latest Ebola outbreak has now become more widespread. As a measure of trying to contain it, authorities have taken to shutting several borders. This includes Nigeria and Kenya. So far the virus has claimed 1,350 lives, and well over 2,000 are suspected to be infected. We will
Charlie raised the controller and switched the screen off, then simply slumped back in his armchair. Silence fell over the room. Ebola. I gave the world Ebola. He turned his head, but the goblin had already disappeared, leaving him alone. He reached toward his tea and went to take another sip, but the mug fell out of his hand, crashing to the floor and smashing into a million pieces. Mr. Charlie Black was not good at making decisions. I never believed in God, or the afterlife. I never took religion on board, or in any way thought to myself that if I prayed to God, He might save me. I'm not that kind of person. As a child, Christmas for me was just another day of the year. We never celebrated it, never got presents, no family dinners. The same thing happened with Easter. There was never any trail of eggs leading out the door of the house, no Easter egg hunt with the relatives. Some might be asking why I'm saying all this out loud. Well, the answer is simple. I'm hoping I can get an answer as to why I'm lying here instead of seeing black. After all, I think I'm supposed to be dead now. Surely being in a car crash and the last thing you feel is something piercing your heart means your body is gone. If the body could speak in a situation like that, I'm sure it would be saying something along the lines of,
I can't cope with this. I'm going to have to shut down. I'm lying in what seems to be a bed of roses. Well, there would be if this was real. The smell of them is so strong I can hardly breathe. I'm naked, and from the position I'm in, all I can see is a black hatch, surrounded by white. Almost blinding in a way. I've already tried to move, but it's like my muscles are locked up, frozen in place so I stay preserved. I should be frightened, I know, but somehow I feel as if I'm meant to be here. It's strange, like a dream. A simulated piece of existence. An hallucinogenic serum. I've already checked my body as best I could for any sort of injection mark, but there's nothing that indicates any sort of drugging situation. Suddenly voices from an unknown source. They are far off in the distance, echoing as if they are in a massive ballroom. It's almost like my soul is trapped inside one of the four walls and the party is going on without me. Only the mumbled vibrations give me company. My thoughts stop as the hatch in front of me opens, and the voices die to nothing. The space in which the hatch used to be has taken on the same white glow as everything around it. However, its shade is intensified, brighter than the others, as if leading to another place. A place where I need to be. I hear another voice. This time it's singular. It belongs to a female.
He's ready. It's time.
The white around me fades along with the voices. I'm still calm, calmer than I was before. I don't know why, but I know I'm supposed to be like this. There's no other way to be. A few moments pass and a faint sound pierces the silence. As time goes on, it becomes louder, clearer. Soon enough, I'm able to identify it. A baby's cry. There's no mistaking it. It's the sound of a newborn baby crying for its mother. The sound gets clearer still, as if it's rushing towards me. I start to slowly feel my memories fading away. What made me is disappearing and I have no control of it. But I smile. I know what it is, and I welcome it. The glowing light where the hatch used to be gets brighter until it totally envelops me. The weightless feeling comes next, and that's when I feel my soul leave whatever it was that was keeping me there, and I descend up into the glow.
The doctor holds the baby in her arms as the mother breathes heavily.
Congratulations. It's a boy.
She's terrified, not sure of what's there, but she knows it's something just beyond the door. She wants to call somebody, let them know where she is, have them call the police so they knock on the door, and when nobody answers, they break it down. But she can't. The landline is in the room over. She's trapped in her 4x4 meter bedroom. Crawling over to the far corner of the room, she shoves herself in between the walls. That's when the door handle starts to rattle, and a low growl begins. She imagines the thing's teeth dripping blood. The blood of the most recent victim. A victim that hasn't claimed its hunger or its bloodthirsty tendencies. She imagines its gray fur, mud-stained and matted in clumps of knots and broken ends. Its 8-foot figure, looming above her as it draws its claws and looks at her with its dark eyes and its sickening grin. The creature of her nightmares. Looking around the room, she desperately tries to find anything to use to defend herself, but nothing is coming to mind. Until the digital clock beside her bed gives her an idea. She knows it can't be used as a weapon, but it lingers in her gaze and she thinks of another use for the timekeeper. Turning her head, she sees the bedroom window. It sits about halfway up the wall, and below it is the bed. It's a convenient view to look at when she can't sleep, and convenient for escaping. Without a second thought, she dashes for the clock, picks it up in her hands, and throws it at the window. Perhaps she should have used the lamp. Could it have been too heavy for her? No. She couldn't have thrown it that far even if she wanted to. She closes her eyes tight shut and just hopes that the clock is heavy enough to make an impact on the window. The plan is successful, and the glass shatters, falling from the space in every direction. The object continues along its path as if nothing had been blocking its way in the first place, and she climbs up onto the bed, planning to follow it in its footsteps. Edging closer towards the open space, the familiar 2 stories of height to the ground making her hesitate, she starts to think twice about her options. That's when the banging on the door begins to start. Her head whips around, and she sees with each thump the door seems to get a little looser on its hinges. Turning to look out the window once again, she is almost wanting to do it, knowing that she would rather die like this and be ripped apart by whatever lingered outside. The door behind her gives way, then swings open. The panic starts to rise in her, but she dare not look at the creature that's just entered the room. She hears it walking towards her, feels its breath on her arm, and suddenly, with a mind controlled by fear, she leaps out the window. Time seems to slow down. She sees the houses across the street, the set of swings in the front yard where she used to play when she was younger, the neighbor's dog, watching with wide eyes while she falls, and then she doesn't see anything at all. Instead, she feels it. A crunch, and then another, and then another, and then nothing. There is nothing for her. The parents of Allison Sanders had found the window to their daughter's bedroom shattered the next morning, and had been beside themselves when they leaned out and saw her lying there in the front yard. Mr. Sanders had gone down the stairs and outside, while Mrs. Sanders had immediately dialed the emergency number, asking for the ambulance. Allison was unresponsive, and from the way the morning sun was casting beams of light through the trees, it looked as though she was Sleeping Beauty, waiting for her true love's first kiss to come and bring her back to life. When the ambulance arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Sanders were in the front yard, cradling their 12-year-old daughter in their arms and crying. The paramedics looked at her and had come to the conclusion that she had passed away hours before the parents had found her. Most likely the fall from the bedroom window was the cause of death. The police arrived and the parents were questioned on whether or not Allison had been suicidal or dealing with anything at school. Whether the school bullies had pushed her too far the day before. "No," said Mr. Sanders.
But she did suffer from these reoccurring nightmares. In the dream, she would be trapped in her room with no one else in the house. And this creature would be waiting outside her door, trying to get in. She would act out these nightmares while they were happening, but we would usually wake up before she did anything to herself. It was never this bad.
After that question, the detective had what he needed. All the evidence was there. They found fingerprints, traces of sweat where the girl's body had been pried up against the wall, the place where the digital clock had been before it was thrown out the window. Everything added up that Allison was having a night terror and had acted it out, jumping out the window. However, there was only one thing the detective couldn't work out. Something that made him stop and think twice about the situation. Allison's bedroom door had been locked at the time of the accident, yet it was swinging open, the lock broken, and the hinges weakened, almost as if something had forced its way in. Upon further analysis, the detective found a bunch of hair at the threshold of the room. It was gray, stained in what looked like mud, and matted in clumps of knots and broken ends.